Pausa rapidinho agora para falar de dica de ouro para os papais e mamães. Depois de experimentar a nova Hug Supreme Care Fralda Roupinha, tudo ficou ainda melhor pro meu filho. É a única com canais em X que se adaptam aos movimentos, com 2 vezes proteção noturna e cintura elástica que se adapta ao corpinho do bebê, além de ser super fácil de colocar e tirar. Praticidade pura. Então guarda essa dica. Nova Hug Supreme Care Fralda Roupinha. Bebê, estamos juntos nessa, mais do que nunca. Agora curta seu podcast.
Uma pausa no seu podcast para falar sobre a beleza, essa força poderosa que nos move. No Grupo L'Oréal, nós criamos a beleza com sustentabilidade. Utilizamos em nossas embalagens 85% de plástico PET de origem reciclada. 65% dos ingredientes vieram de base biológica ou derivados de minerais abundantes. Grupo L'Oréal. Nós criamos a beleza que move o mundo.
My wife's mother is visiting, Father. And Tuesday night she's cooking us a carp. It's a tasty fish. I have nothing against it. But because it's supposedly filled with impurities, she buys it live. And for 3 days it's been swimming up and down in my bathtub.
Hello and welcome to Unequal Sequel. My name is Dave and I'm one of the 2 hosts of this robust podcast.
And I'm Rich and I'm the other host of this robust podcast. Think of me as the narrator to Dave's Tyler Durden. I'm possibly having a breakdown and I'm not sure he exists.
I think that might be one of your best. The premise of Unequal Sequel is very simple. We ask our guests their best ever sequel, worst ever sequel, and finally their dream sequel.
And of course, we often drift off and talk about other things. Sometimes movies, sometimes life in general, but always good chats.
And sometimes we do like to drop big, fat spoilers for movies. So if you haven't seen that movie, just skip ahead, go and de-ice that freezer. I know it needs doing. Both me and Rich both need to do ours. And then you can come back and get on with the episode. Because on today's episode, we are joined by Chris Thorburn.
Chris is a brilliant stand-up comedian, and also, he's one of us, guys. He's a movie podcaster. There's a brilliant podcast called Good For Them.
We're very excited to sit down with Chris and chat all things sequels with him.
These are Chris Thorburn's Unequal Sequels. Enjoy.
What is the first sequel you remember seeing when you were younger?
So I think it was probably Short Circuit 2.
Ooh.
I think I remember that one being on the telly quite a lot. I tell you what it was, actually. It was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3, Turtles in Time.
Oh, wow, okay.
That was the one. I don't know why. I don't know if you guys had this as well, but I feel like there were some sequels back in the 90s, whether or not it was just like what your local video shop had, or what was on telly more, that you wind up seeing the sequels more. I remember seeing Ghostbusters 2 a lot more, and things like that. But my local video shop, it didn't have the other 2 Ninja Turtles movies. I think I saw the first Ninja Turtles film on telly, and it was a long time until I saw the second one. But the third one, which I know is bad, I know it's a significant drop off from the first 2. I know that now, but like when you're a kid, you're not aware of films being bad. I loved the third one so much, and I rented it so many times. That's the one where they sort of they travel back to sort of ancient Japan, and like 4 samurais are swapped in their place, and so they're just hanging out in the sewer with Splinter and and April O'Neil.
I've never seen the third one. I've never brought myself to watch it. I remember watching the first one a lot. I remember going to the cinema to watch that one. Secret of the Ooze I remember loving when I was a child, and I recently watched it, and it's dreadful.
Yeah.
It's really bad. The first one held up just about, but the third one I still haven't brought myself to go there. Does They dropped the budget a lot for the third, wasn't it? Like the suits are almost falling to pieces if the pictures and the stories are confirmed.
Yeah. Like it's. I think the first two were done with Jim Henson Workshop, and the third one they went with someone else. And also even though the first one is a kids movie, it's not, it's got that bit of an edge to it, and it's kind of got a kind of dark.
It's got Vanilla Ice in the second one.
The second one's sillier, and by this third one is a full blown children's film. I'd say,
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a lot sillier. It's a lot, the first one. And maybe it's just due to budget constraints, the first one, it takes a lot in the shadows and stuff like that. And now this one's just it's fully lit, out broad daylight, and I think like Michelangelo's like making friends with like a little kid and stuff.
Of course he is.
But I rented that so many times from Global Video, because. Yeah, the front cover is great. It's just the four of them. Like it's a great poster of just I think it's painted, and yeah, it's just like the four of them up in front of a sunset. Just like all flying in the air. It's just like, oh yeah, yeah.
I just kind of remember them on horseback, like turtles on
horseback.
Yeah, and don't they do like a little dance at one point? They all like link arms and do a little dance and stuff. Like,
yeah,
that sort of stick. I can't remember much about it. I think there's
a dance routine. There's definitely a dance routine in the second one because they do it with Vanilla Ice. And I imagine there's a dance routine.
Go ninja, go.
Yeah, I think it was probably about 12 when I watched it, so I can't really remember it. My brother was obsessed with Turtles, so he would have seen it.
I think everyone was obsessed with Turtles for a while.
Yeah,
it was the cool toy to have. You said your video store was called, was it Global Video?
Yes.
I love the names. Was it a big thing for you when you were younger to go into the video store and rent and stuff?
Yeah. Like, it'd always be like every weekend, parents would get one for them and get like one for us. But, a lot of time you'd just be renting the same thing again. Because, like when you're a kid, you just kind of want to, the stuff that you like, and you repeat it ad nauseum. And then I remember, growing up, up till I was like 10, it was the Global Video in Coatbridge. And then I moved, and then later when I was a teenager and it sort of all moved over to DVD, being about 16, 17, that my Friday night was like, they had a Global Video as well, and it was walking to that one, and at that point, then I was more in the kind of, okay, this is filling in the blanks, need to get the film education, like watching all the cult classics, watching all the good directors stuff, and they would rent me 18s, knowing full well I wasn't 18. They were very class.
Oh, nice. When did the cinema thing come a thing for you? Like your cinema awakening? What age was that?
Oh God.
When did you realise sequels could be better, or even films could be better? Because like you said, when you were younger, everything was brilliant.
Okay. Actually, now Suze Kempner touched on this in her episode, but I do remember like seeing Return of Jafar in like a shop and be like, oh my God, wait, there's a second Aladdin. I had no idea, and here it is. And then that kind of crushing realization as it goes into as you put it on, you're like, I'm a child, but even I know this is a drop off.
It's a horrible moment.
This looks cheap. Yeah.
Like, Mommy and Daddy, what's wrong with their faces?
Yeah.
Why does Jafar sound different? Oh.
Yeah.
They still do this now, right? With animated sequels. Like I watched the Megamind sequel with my son yesterday, and the first one, the cast is incredible. It's Will Ferrell and lots of famous people doing voices. And this one is like no one. It's like the animation is distinct drop off. There is no one famous in the cast whatsoever of the sequel. It really is a kind of made for TV load of rubbish. and it's really sad. Because the first one's really good.
It's such a strange thing as well, because I could be wrong, but I think Will Ferrell is in the next Despicable Me movie. And do you remember at the time, like, so Megamind and Despicable Me were kind of rival films from like different companies that were like, oh, we're gonna do sort of like super villains kind of. And he's fully jumped over.
Well, you would though. The Despicable Me is an absolute monster of a franchise. That could be one of the years that actually gets to $1 billion, actually makes money in 2024, which has been a bit of a weird year for box office wise, especially for some of the bigger titles. When you were younger and you're watching all these, when you know the crossover between VHS and DVD, were you geeky enough like me when you started to look if they come with extras as well then on the DVDs and from the rental stores?
Oh yeah. What I love is like when you look at the early wave of DVDs, like you get some films that like on DVD they never got a newer edition.
Yeah.
And the markers of like early DVDs, like when you look at the bonus features and one of them interactive menus, and it's like yeah, I hope it's got a menu. I hope it's like or it's got still gallery.
Or they just have a trailer. Most of them
yeah.
No, I used to dig. I was like, oh, they've got a making of or a gag reel. I used to love a gag reel. That used to be very much my thing. What is your best ever sequel?
Well, I think now I wanted to avoid anything that you guys had already talked about. So I had a look at and you guys got like the heavy hitters. You got like your Terminator 2s and your Dark Knights and stuff like that. I've gone with Exorcist 3.
Nice.
This is definitely one we've never spoken about.
So, have you guys seen it before?
Nope, I haven't.
No, we watched it. I watched it for this podcast. I'd never seen it before. I'd heard that 2 is notoriously bad, but I didn't really know anything about 3.
Didn't know it was a thing. Didn't know. It was a thing.
That's the thing. That's the thing. Like nobody really. I mean, you've got like a small cult who are like the people who like really love this film, but the fact that it's a sequel to one of the biggest films of all time, and it's a franchise that is still ongoing. We're still getting Exorcist movies, but like nobody really knows about the third one. And the thing is, in terms of like all the Exorcist sequels, they can all sort of be categorized as failures, and this one is as well in terms of like box office and stuff. But it's such a fascinating film, and I think it's the fact that you simply cannot replicate the first Exorcist, and so for the fact that they actually try to do something interesting, something different, still within that world, and I think it's really entertaining. It's really funny early on, and everybody who I've shown it to has been converted by it. They're like I mean, just I think you've got Brad Dourif doing maybe some of his best work.
Give that man an Oscar in this film. It's incredible.
Right, like just the monologues that he gives, and you're just kind of like you're transfixed by him. I think it manages. The first Exorcist is such a strange beast in that it is simultaneously sort of a controversial, explicit movie, but also the biggest blockbuster of that year, and also prestige Oscar contender. That could be all these three things. It's lightning in a bottle. The third one definitely didn't set the world on fire. It certainly wasn't like a huge blockbuster, but I think it does a good job of being both, at times a strange and arty movie, but also an entertaining horror with detective elements in there as well. It's and especially after number 2, which is a strong contender for one of the worst sequels ever made. Okay. I want to love 2 so much because I love a hot mess, and that's certainly what the second one is. But it's so strange, but it's so boring.
Okay.
Yeah. Number 2 involves none of the creative team of the original. It's obviously got Linda Blair back, but that's about it. This one written and directed by William Peter Blatty, who wrote the novel and the screenplay for the original one. Initially, it was going to be William Friedkin was going to come back, but Friedkin dropped out for a while. William Peter Blatty was talking to John Carpenter about doing this.
Wow.
But William Peter Blatty only directed 2 films. Prior to this, he directed a film called The Ninth Configuration, which is also a really strange film. It sort of defies categorization. It's sort of a comedy, but it's I highly recommend it. But it's a weirder beast than this. In a better world, we would have gotten several William Peter Blatty movies, because you watch this and you're like, I would happily watch more from this guy.
Yeah. So can you just give our listeners what links it to the first Exorcist? Give us a brief synopsis, then we'll go from there.
Sure. So if you've seen now there are
basically
2 cuts of the Exorcist.
Because it's a bit mad, but I love it. This is why I want to hear it from you.
Yeah. So you had the original theatrical cut of The Exorcist, but then right about 2000, they brought out the extended cut, the version that you've never seen before, is what they called it, because they didn't call it a director's cut. And in that one, you've actually got a couple scenes that have been put back in at the request of William Peter Blatty, and one of them is at the end of the film. You've got the characters of Detective Kinderman and Father Dyer, and they're just sparking up a friendship, having a conversation at the end of the film. It's a very weird note for that film to end on that kind of seems a little unrelated to most stuff. But now this film, which came out in 1990, picks up with both of them. Both have been recast.
Okay. I was like, do I know these characters before? That's what I was trying to explain to my wife. I think it might be the police officer from the first one, but he looks different.
Yeah. So they've both been recast. Now Kinderman is played by George C. Scott, and Father Dyer is played by Ed Flanders. So a detective and a priest who have been friends since the first Exorcist. So this will be about 25 years.
15, I think they said.
Sorry, 15 years. Sorry, my maths is off. And meanwhile, there's a serial killer who goes by the name the Gemini Killer. And there's a patient in a mental facility who is claiming to be the Gemini Killer, carrying out the killings through possession. Yeah, this killer is played by Brad Dourif, and early on, slight spoiler, but this is early on in the film. Then Father Dyer is killed by the Gemini Killer, and Detective Kinderman's on the case. And so it's this sort of supernatural horror detective movie. I
love the detective part of it. The detective movie bit really got me, and it's the horror part where I kind of lose it a little bit. I think if I could just have the detective part, then I'd be happier. But that's me. I'm not really a big horror kind of person, so that makes sense. But I think the twist, if we can call it a twist, but the reveal essentially, I think is a really good one.
Didn't see that coming. Yeah. Didn't see that coming.
Can we spoil? We don't want to spoil it for people. We can spoil it.
Yeah, we give a warning at the beginning. If you haven't seen Exorcist 3, go watch Exorcist 3. It's quite good. I'm going to put it in the same camp as Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 and Psycho 2 now. I was going to text Rich and be like, I really enjoyed it. I mean, it goes mental. We'll get to the spoiler in a minute. It goes mental at the end when the lighting in the room starts happening, the floor disappearing. And I was like, okay, I was waiting for when The Exorcist starts and suddenly a priest turns up to do it. And I'm not quite sure where you came from, but okay, I'm in this. Like you said, Brad Dourif's great. But it turns out that Damien Carrick, what's his name from the first one? Is it Damien?
Father Karras. Damien Karras.
He died in the first one. And so did the Gemini Killer, got put to sleep at the same time, killed in the electric chair, I think. And somehow Satan, or whoever, had put the Gemini Killer spirit, or whatever you like to call it, into Damien's body. And so Damien is technically alive in this mental hospital. I mean, that didn't even do it justice, how I tried to explain it then.
No, yeah, it's wild.
And then it keeps, when, like you said, when Brad is doing his bits to camera, it keeps cutting between Damien and the Brad character. And I for a while, it took me like, oh, okay, they're just showing that this is what the Gemini killer looked like, but it is actually Damien. Man, I loved it. I was so shocked. I went downstairs halfway through because I was watching. My wife was like, "How is it?" I was like, "It's really good." I was not ready. I was not ready for it. Like Rich was saying, the police aspect, the detective stuff. He was brilliant. Some of the jump scares are really good. There's nothing too gory wise for it make it an 18, but there's some really.
There's sort of a bit where the
there.
priest's head gets stuck to the wall and he kind of rips his skin off and stuff. I think that's probably what.
That's when we went to 11.
Over,
like they turned it up to 11 for the ending, and The Exorcist. Stylely, there is an exorcism, because for a moment I didn't think we were going to go for a whole film again with an actual exorcism like we did in the new film, The Exorcist.
Yeah, I mean this is 100 times better than Exorcist Believer that we watched recently.
Yeah, it's wild. Like there was the fact that there was an official Exorcist sequel that came out last year and no one really gave a shit. It's
horrid. Horrid. When did you first come across The Exorcist 3? Is it?
Well, so when I was a kid, do you remember it was the year 2000, I think it was.
Oh,
where
I remember
The
it well.
Exorcist
Chris.
kind of, yeah. Like The Exorcist had sort of been banned in the UK for decades, and the year 2000 was The Exorcist's big comeback year, where it's it was back in cinemas for a bit, and then it was shown on telly, and it was getting the video release, and I for some reason, there was a scene from The Exorcist being shown on telly. I caught that. It scared the wits out of me. And so for the longest time, as a kid, I held The Exorcist as this incredible, I'd never seen the film, but in my head, it was the most terrifying thing. And I think the poster as well, the fact that the poster is so enigmatic, it's similar to the poster for John Carpenter's The Thing, in that it's so strange and evocative that your imagination fills it in, and it can be the most terrifying thing in the world. So on the one hand, I was kind of repulsed and terrified by The Exorcist, but I was also fascinated by it. I think because it had that kind of grasp on me. So I remember in bookshops, because you didn't really have, there was the internet, but you didn't really have as much sort of resources. I remember in bookshops when you had those big thick books that were just the essential movie guide.
Yeah.
And so it's I'm never watching The Exorcist. I can barely stand to look at any images from the film, but I want to know more about it in a weird way. And so I remember just reading up about The Exorcist and then finding out that there were sequels and also just I would just give you little blurbs and little cast lists, and the fact that you're just okay, so this has Fabio and Samuel L. Jackson. Yep. But yeah, so, and then I remember eventually I finally watched The Exorcist and loved it. I think it's a masterpiece. But then hearing good things about The Exorcist 3, and I think the first time I saw it, it was a late night thing on Film 4 or something.
God bless Film 4 and Channel 4 from my childhood for movies, man.
Back in the day, I mean, it's still good, but I feel Film 4 back during that period of the early 2000s, that was an education.
Oh, yeah.
That was you would stay up late at night and it would be showing something wild,
But I mean, coming home from nights out and putting Film 4 on and it being something like Audition and never being the same again.
I remember watching Audition on Film 4. Yeah, it was I think maybe with an intro by Mark Kermode or something like that.
Yeah,
I think so. Yeah.
Film 4, Channel 4 used to do this great thing. They don't do them all, top 100 thrillers, top 100 horror films, top 100 romances. And I remember absolutely binging all of them every time on. They always went on for 4 hours. And once you start, you can't stop until you know what number one is. And I do remember, actually, one of the jump scares in Exorcist 3 being in there. It's the one when the woman's looking down the corridor and she goes a few rooms and you get that fake jump scare when the patient jumps over the top and you think, oh, that's it. And then she locks the door, and then the person comes out initially straight behind her with the big scissor things. Man, that's a good one.
It's such a great sequence. It goes on. It just it holds that tension for so long, like that you know something is going to happen.
Yeah.
But it's it, and again, like it holds off on the gore. It's a creative like cut right to like a statue with no head instead of actually showing any blood. But
Yeah.
I remember being very pissed off. So do you know they made like 2 remakes of Black Christmas? They made one back in like 2005 or 6 or something, and then it made another one a few years back with like Imogen Poots and that, and
Yes,
Carrie Elwes. And there is a scene in that is essentially doing that sequence. And I know you can argue, oh, this is an homage, but when it's a film that not many people have seen, it's a rip-off. I'm sorry. Like it's not an homage to like the sequence. You are just taking this and like sorry, that upset me.
Yeah. So have you been like a one-man army of trying to get people to watch Exorcist 3 over the years then?
I have, yeah. I'm like it. Anytime it's on telly, I will tell people like, please just give it a chance. Trust me, because it's such a hard sell because every other Exorcist sequel is just straight
Trash.
up bad.
Yeah.
The second one is just one of the worst sequels ever made. I remember, the period where we got like 2 versions of the prequels, and you want to believe, they took the vision out of a proper director's hands, and like, but neither version is good.
Oh, they're both
actually.
bad. Yeah.
And then Believer last year. If you see one Exorcist movie from last year, make it The Pope's Exorcist. At least The Pope's Exorcist is a daft laugh. I had a ton of fun with that one.
I haven't seen that yet. That's Russell Crowe, isn't it? And he's about to do another film called The Exorcism. So
yeah, like,
but not related.
Not related.
Right.
Yeah, apparently that one was like filmed like 2 years prior and just sat there for a while, and like he kind of got this offer for this other one. Who's like, I won't tell them I've got an Exorcist movie in the bag.
It's all very strange, the whole Exorcist, like, because like you said, it was banned for so many years, the video nasties era, and that kind of made you want to watch it a little bit more. And when it did come freely available, and you're like, okay, we can finally watch this film. And I remember like you, when it came out on DVD or whatever, and you're like, okay, I'm going to sit down and watch this really scary film. And it is truly terrifying, that first one, like the sounds and the crowd. Gives me EBGBs now and stuff, and everyone's so good in it. And I've never seen the second one. I'm trying to get Mark Commode on this podcast because I think it's his worst ever sequel. So I'd love to hear his rant about it. And the third one, when you got named it, I was like, okay. I got used to get the second and third one muddled up. I was like, okay, let's see where this goes. But man, it's really good, Chris. I can't get over how surprised I was how good. I was going to say, Chris, like, I really enjoyed that. That is really weird.
It's surprising. It definitely is. It's going to make the surprising list, I think.
I don't think I'll ever get over it. It was mad in a good way, and it shows what you can do with an Exorcist film. You don't always have to play it safe like the original, which is you can't go against. Did you the new one, whatever it's called, Believer? Did you go and see it in the cinema?
I didn't. It's
these guys.
I remember
did.
at that. Yeah,
we did.
So, I mean, were either of you fans of it?
No, it's awful.
No, it's horrible. Yeah.
It's truly at the end when the girl gets dragged. I just didn't like it. To how I just
I just remember, like, at that period, I was incredibly busy at that period, and I already did not have good feelings about it because, for the most part, I haven't enjoyed what David Gordon Green's done with the Halloween movies. I think with the 3 of them that he's made, there's enough that you could have made like one good film out of like the bits and pieces that work there. But I wasn't a huge fan of like what he had done. And The Exorcist is an even bigger beast. I love Halloween, but like The Exorcist is this masterpiece. It was like, oh, you've got your work even more cut out for you. And when the reviews started coming out and none of them were good, I was just kind of like, you know what? I don't have the time to just go taking an evening out to go see a film that I know I'm not going to enjoy. I won't bother. Like, if once it comes to streaming, I might give it a shout, but like, no.
Yeah, it's just not. It's very mean spirited. Essentially, there's no. You don't. I'm fine with a horror movie being horrible by all means, but give it some sort of light. Give it some sort of victory or something good happen.
Yeah.
You can't end, the way that movie ends is just like horrible.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. Like with this one, with Exorcist 3, what I love is Father Dyer, like he dies quite early in the film, but prior to this, the friendship that they put together, they're incredibly funny. Like that scene where he goes to visit him in the hospital, I rewatched that scene just before we started recording. I was like, there are more jokes per minute in this that work than in many comedies that I go see now. And in just such a short amount of time, you enjoy the patter between these characters, their friendship. So when he's taken away from us, we do feel that loss. Yeah. Like with very minimal work, like there's heart there to it that like, so we do feel the grief, that when his friend is taken away from him.
He calls him his best friend, and that I was like, that really. Yeah. I love the bit where they agree to go to cinema together, but they tell their colleagues they're doing it for each other to cheer them up. Like it's so sweet. And when they get to cinema, It's a Wonderful Life is great, and one wants to get like lemon drops, and the other guy's late. It's just it does a lot of hard work to like building that chemistry and that relationship very quickly, and it does it very well. So when the priest does die, you really do feel the anger and that he's going to miss him, and he wants to solve this. And it's why in 1990 had no one really heard of The Exorcist 3? Any ideas? What happened there?
Well, I mean, I think there's an element of one, I think the marketing might have failed it, and two, like
I'd like to see that marketing.
Yeah, I mean, The Exorcist 2, like at the very least came just a couple years after the first Exorcist, so it's sort of like striking while the iron's hot. Then this is much later. We very rarely get numbered sequels anymore. I think they try to avoid that because, like, no one wants to go see Halloween 7 or something like that. So maybe there was a degree of like audiences being like Exorcist 3, especially because 2 was so bad. And like, there's no implication of, oh, by the way, we're ignoring number 2, which they are. But
they do. Yeah.
No.
Do you think like that? Because people passed out during The Exorcist originally when its original run. Do you think people were too scared to go and see it? Like just because of the name?
Maybe. It's like. But also, I feel like in the UK it would have been an odd sell because it's a sequel to a film that at that point was out of circulation as well. So you're like, all right, like, can I go see this when, like, maybe, like, say, teenage audiences would not have really been able to see the first Exorcist,
No, you're 10 years away from The Exorcist coming back. Like, if this had been released in 2000 instead of 1990, it would have been a much bigger hit here, I would think, because you've got that kind of... that wave of people going to see The Exorcist again for the first time. And it was just came at the wrong time, really, I think.
It was ahead of its time, maybe, as well.
Oh, yeah.
It definitely... thank you for picking it. It was great. I love it when picks like this. I'm like, okay, well, let's just see what happens. And then
so when Dave said, oh, yeah, best is Exorcist 3, I was like, really?
When Chris mentioned it, he said, has anyone brought out Exorcist 3? And I was like, okay, I don't know if he's talking about good, bad, or dream here. But no one's picked it, so you can go for it. It's like, okay, that's my best. I was like, oh, okay, brilliant.
I'm so glad you guys enjoyed it.
Yeah. Well, we're now in the club. If you want to start an Exorcist 3 club, I mean, the end gets a bit mad, but until then, it gets great.
Well, actually, that's one thing. So
there is a club. Is that what you're about to tell me?
Well, no, this is actually a case of studio interference. There exist 2 cuts of this film because it kind of got taken out of Will and Peter Blatty's hands, and the studio. Well, one, the inclusion of Jason Miller, who plays Karis, was kind of brought in by the studio. I think that works.
Yes.
I think, it does a good job to underline, like, this is who this is.
It's a legacy sequel with legacy characters before that was a thing. So great, yeah.
100%. But they were also like, we can't do an Exorcist movie without an exorcism.
True.
And so when you say like the end, it kind of then gets a bit genre and a bit silly. And I agree. I still think it works. But yeah, that's all studio mandated. And there is I don't have this edition of the Blu-ray, but I've got a copy of it. Like, I found a copy of it online. Like, when Arrow brought out the release of it, they had sort of put together. It's imperfect because the restored scenes are in sort of VHS kind of quality.
Oh yeah.
So you're kind of watching this Frankenstein cut of a film, but it's a cut that's closer to William Peter Blatty's vision. He just wanted to call the film Legion. He didn't want to call it Exorcist 3. So it's the Legion cut, and the bigger, more fantastical elements are toned down. It's more of a... and so that version's there, and that version's good. I like that as well. I don't hate the hammier elements. I think it kind of comes together, but yeah, like
my only problem
when you say there's a disconnect,
is where that other priest comes from. He's just suddenly looking out of a window, and then he senses something, and the next thing you know, unless I miss something, he's at the end. I was like, he's
kind of tacked on?
Is he?
Yeah.
Has any? Did I miss any relevance to the rest of the story?
They mention him. They mention someone, another priest doing a successful exorcism in Chile or something.
But how did he get to the?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know, man.
Through sheer will of plot.
I love it.
Pausa rapidinho agora para falar de dica de ouro para os papais e mamães. Depois de experimentar a nova Hug Supreme Care Fralda Roupinha, tudo ficou ainda melhor pro meu filho. É a única com canais em X que se adaptam aos movimentos, com 2 vezes proteção noturna e cintura elástica que se adapta ao corpinho do bebê, além de ser super fácil de colocar e tirar. Praticidade pura. Então guarda essa dica. Nova Hug Supreme Care Fralda Roupinha. Bebê, estamos juntos nessa, mais do que nunca. Agora curta seu podcast.
Interrompemos esse podcast para perguntar: quem você quer ser?
Designer,
Engenheira,
pedagoga,
administrador.
Quer saber? O Senac EAD é nota máxima no MEC. Tem cursos de diversas áreas, com conteúdo elaborado por especialistas do mercado e professores mestres e doutores. Ainda tem o Senac Carreiras, conectando estudantes a vagas de emprego em todo o país. Saiba mais em ead.senac.br/graduação.
What has been your most disappointing sequel? So it doesn't have to be a bad sequel. It's not your worst sequel, but you went in high and you came out a little bit low.
So now I don't know if this is the most. Okay, this has probably come up before. But actually, the last time I truly felt just deflated was Rise of Skywalker.
Yes.
And I know this has probably been brought up before.
Oh yeah.
And I understand that The Last Jedi is a very divisive movie. For me, I went to go see The Last Jedi, and I came out of it, and me being a dumb bitch, I was like, everybody is gonna love this.
I was the same, Chris.
It never crossed my mind that anybody would dislike it. There was nothing in there that I was just like, well, I was into that, but that's gonna upset some people. Never crossed my mind at all. And with Rise of Skywalker, I feel you've made a film for nobody. Like it's like, folk who like The Last Jedi are going to be disappointed by it, but like the folk, and just feeling so deflated because I really liked The Force Awakens, but it's quite a safe movie. It needs to reassure you, hey, like, don't worry. This is the Star Wars that you recognize, that you like. Don't worry. The Last Jedi was the first time that I walked out of it and I felt excited to be a Star Wars fan again, where it's just like, oh, this feels at peace with the old stuff, but it feels new and exciting, and I cannot wait to see where they go with this. And then the Rise of Skywalker,
I love your face when you're talking about The Last Jedi. It's all happy and smiley. It's like you've bought a new dog. And then you mentioned Rise of Skywalker, and you're like completely down. It's incredible. What were you expecting from Rise of Skywalker before you were going in there? And what, were you like a one-day or first day going in?
I think I saw it like that opening weekend, but I was already kind of apprehensive because, I mean, you see the trailer and you're like, okay, Palpatine's back
somehow.
I wonder. I wonder how they explain that. Turns out they don't.
Yeah.
And yeah, it seeing all the behind the scenes stuff of it being taken out of. I'm not the biggest fan of Colin Trevorrow. I thought, his Safety Not Guaranteed was a fun film, but I wasn't the biggest fan of Jurassic World. But I was like, this guy's got an idea of something that he wants to make, and feeling very last minute, kind of like, pull the brakes, 180, bring in J.J. Abrams again. It felt like a studio sort of in crisis mode, kind of.
We all know of any director out there, J.J. Abrams could stick a landing, right? Never know, like, historically famous for not being able to finish something off.
Rich is still angry about Lost.
I'm still angry about Lost. I'm so angry about Last Jedi. Like, I'm trying not to talk about it because I've spoken about it so much on this podcast. But I hate it.
Yeah. If I was to go with something that's maybe not been sort of talked to death on podcasts a lot, one that disappointed me not too long ago was now I saw, like, in the list that you gave, somebody in worst sequels. Am I right in saying that somebody in worst sequels put Magic Mike XXL, or did I imagine?
I think you imagined that. Not in.
I think we did a review of Magic Mike XXL. I don't think anyone picked it as.
But we've had that as what seemed like might have been disappointing, actually, because XL is good. The second one.
I really like XXL.
The third one.
I think the third one, Last Dance.
Hang on. So there's Magic Mike, and then there's a second one. Is that XL or XXL?
Sorry, the first one is Magic Mike. The second one is. Am I putting an extra X in there?
I think
is
it might
just
be
Magic Mike XL.
Yeah.
Sorry, beg your pardon.
That's all right.
It's Magic Mike XL, and then Magic Mike's Last Dance.
Yes.
And I remember I worked in the cinema when the first Magic Mike came out, and the first Magic Mike is such a strange phenomenon because, and I think it's a good movie. I think
someone has picked it. I think it is on a list somewhere. The second one. I think you're right.
Right. Like, the first one, I remember working in the cinema, and what you got was a lot of, hen do's or, girls' nights out coming to see the film that was advertised, and what they're getting is a bit more of a sort of serious, sobering movie. It's still a good movie. But, and so for ages, I never saw XL, and then when I did... And XL is kind of the film that people wanted the first one to be.
Yes.
Yeah. But it's also it's one of the most effortlessly entertaining films I've seen. Like, it's so fun, and that's another one that, like, I speak to folk, I'm like, trust me. Like, this is it's such an earnest sort of himbo of a movie where it's just like, yeah, this is like, we're bringing joy into these people's lives. We can, like,
it's a good road trip movie. The second one.
It really is. Yeah, it's a fun ensemble. It's just a fun hangout movie. And so I think maybe because the second one surprised me so much, I was looking forward to the third one. And of course, with the third one, Steven Soderbergh's back. He was not directing the second one. And, Steven Soderbergh isn't really a director who likes to repeat himself. So, there was like a sort of reason that he wanted to come back to the third one. And watching it, I realized, this is Steven Soderbergh wants to make a Richard Curtis movie here, is what he wants to do. I don't think he's doing a good job of it. And it just felt so, don't get me wrong, that first section, like, where he does, like, the big dance with Salma Hayek, that's incredible.
Yeah.
That is
sexy,
like, Yeah. But then the rest of the film that follows, where you've just got like a wisecracking butler, and you've got like it felt, it wasn't for me.
It's
and
You're 100% right.
I respect.
I think, yeah. I think you're totally right. It is like Steven Soderbergh trying to make a Richard Curtis movie. It really does feel like that. I think, Dave, you're thinking nobody has picked it, by the way.
Okay, good. Okay.
I think maybe you're thinking is because we had Ethan Lawrence on and he's in it.
He's in it.
He's in Last Dance.
And you're right. We have reviewed the third one. That's
guest.
where I watched the second one.
But it is
probably.
the second one is XXL, by the way.
Is it?
You were you were right,
Chris, your knowledge is incredible. I'm sorry I've ever doubted you. Why do they have so many XLs?
I don't know. if I was quick, like, what? Yeah. Is XXL Roman numerals? Like, will I get Magic Mike XXL if I haven't seen the first?
Yeah.
So many?
XXL 25? No, 20. Anyway, I don't know. But yeah, I don't think so. I think it just...
Trying to save a theatre. That's what it feels like the last film's basically down to.
Yeah,
that was disappointing. I went in thinking I was going to get something fun, and it kind of lacked a lot of joy. It lacked that friendship of all the men traveling around in their little like car, and when they were on their like little Zoom call, I was like, oh, they're the people I wanted him to see him interacting with, and it's not. And it's weird that you miss those kind of characters in that film, but oh yeah, that was sad. Let's go on to one of the big ones now, which me and Rich are quite intrigued about, which is, what is your worst ever sequel?
Okay, now when I pitched this, I since gone back in the archives and realized that you guys have reviewed this one, and
fine.
And
that's okay.
So it's Clerks 3 for me. I just remember that and I've spoken to people who have enjoyed it, and I want to say, I do not wish to, I don't yuck anyone's yum, and anybody who enjoyed a thing, that's what we're all trying to do.
Yes.
You win here.
Exactly, absolutely. That's the whole point of this podcast, is that someone's best movie is someone else's worst movie, right?
And someone's worst film is someone's best film. It's
all just opinions, and everyone's opinions are valid. So don't feel like you have to justify yourself. You go for it.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of sort of film fans of our particular generation, I've got a weird, strange relationship with Kevin Smith. I feel like, so many of us have those initial films. I live in a home that's got 2 Clerks Xbox sets. It's got we've got 2 copies of Jersey Girl.
Oh.
Nobody should have 2 copies of Jersey Girl, but we do.
I don't hate Jersey Girl. I'll be honest.
It's you know what? Like, I've come around on Jersey Girl. Like, is it a perfect film? No, but it's one of his more competent films, because I grew up loving the Kevin Smith films, and then as I got a little older and sort of revisited them, I started to see the cracks, I started to see the flaws in them, and for a while, I kind of really went off them, and I've since sort of come around to those classic ones where it's these are flawed and imperfect, but I loved them so much when I was younger that I can't fully, they got me into films a lot, and there are parts of them that still work. For my money, I think his best film is probably Dogma. I think that's the one where he's just firing on all cylinders, but. And then his later output has been a sort of guy in crisis. I think for a long time. I think maybe the disaster of Jersey Girl. Maybe he never really recovered from that.
No, there is no argument for that. Yes,
because you had the original sort of Askewniverse, everything up to and including Jane Silent Bob Strike Back, and he was like, right, close the book on that. Now I want to try something else. He made Jersey Girl, which is a perfectly fine film that got released under poor circumstances and got critically destroyed, and so he immediately retreats back and does Clerks 2, a film that I enjoyed back at the time. Since revisiting it, There's parts of it that I still think work, and parts of it I think really don't. And then everything's been. I remember when Zack and Miri came out, and I thought, this is a mode that he could work in. Like he's sort of making films in the Apatow kind of wheelhouse. But then when that did poorly at the box office, and then he was just like, oh no, what do I do? Like it's he's never found his footing again, and the thing is, but by the time we got to Clerks 3, when Clerks 3 came out in the cinema, me and my friend John, we went to go see it, and it had the feeling of, just going to the cinema, it had the feeling of, we were going to the funeral of a friend that we've lost touch with. And we don't feel very good about this at all. This is probably going to be bad, but we have to do this. We felt like we owed it to Kevin, and we owed it to Dante and Randall, but also I don't know how many times. Back in 2001, Jane Silent Bob Strike Back was essentially meant to be a victory lap of his career up until that point. We're revisiting these characters. We're saying catchphrases from the old films. Let's tie it up. Then he does Clerks 2, a film that is very much in conversation with Clerks 1. Then he makes Zack and Miri, which could be read as a sort of film about the making of Clerks. It's guys making a film after hours in the place that they work.
And it's kind of fine. Zack and Miri, it's not awful. It's okay.
It's functional. And then he makes Jane Silent Bob Reboot, which is a do-over of the victory lap again, where he's bringing in characters from the old ones, and then immediately following up with Clerks 3, which is by this point, Kevin Smith used to make films where people talk about Star Wars and Batman. Now he makes films where people talk about Kevin Smith films, and everything is a quotation of something else, and there's a oh look, my jersey says 37, and also there's a 37 there because do you remember 37? And do you remember I assure you we're open? It's the characters from Clerks are acting like these are in the world of Clerks 3. The events of the first Clerks is just an average day that happened to them, like 25 years ago. But now by Clerks 3, they're acting like it's iconic and like it's just like, hey, do you remember? I'm not even supposed to be here today. They say that so many times in that film, and I'm just like, stop reminding me of the film. Make something new. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry.
No, don't be sorry. I think everything when you picked it, when Dave sent it over to me, and I was like, oh, that's interesting, because I like you, big sort of Kevin Smith fan when I was younger, and not long ago did a really deep dive for another podcast. They did a World Cup of Kevin Smith movies and got me on to go and talk about it. So I've watched literally everything not too long ago, including Yoga Hosers, which is horrible.
My condolences.
And we went and watched Clerks 3 at the Prince Charles Cinema. The day it opened, we were really excited, and I think my general feeling of it was sort of disappointment, I guess. I didn't hate it, but also it does kind of get you in the feels at the end. It did kind of, I think you're absolutely right of saying it's like going to a funeral of a friend you've lost touch with.
That's a beautiful way.
Such a really good explanation of it. Because I did kind of, there were times that I'm like, okay, this is too much. This is too referential. It's too much. And then by the end I was like, God, I miss Kevin Smith, man.
Well, here's the thing. As much as I hated this film, and I'm still rooting for him, he holds such a weird place in our lives that, what I remember when he had his heart attack, and I was like, oh God, I can't remember the last time I enjoyed any of your films, but I feel emotional right now, and I hope you pull through.
It's because he is the embodiment of everything that well, it's me, but I think a lot of people were stupid, nerdy kids who would happily sell their comic book collection to make a movie with their friends. Like, that was exactly what I wanted to be, you know, when I was a kid, when I watched his movies, you know, I was like, that is inspiration. That's what I want to be. Not, you know, taking aside the fact that he got incredibly lucky at every stage to get his movies made.
Blessed, yeah.
Yeah. But you're like, yeah, I could do this. This could be a thing I could do. But yeah, so I think that's kind of, you know, he'll always be that person to aspire to be, no matter how terrible his movies get, I guess.
I like Kevin Smith being Kevin Smith. Unlike you guys, I haven't gone to Yoga Hoser or some of his other films. But I like his, like, you know, his Q&As. I love a Kevin Smith Q&A. I like how brutally honest. He's a fantastic storyteller. And I remember I just re-listened to our episode back when we reviewed Clerks 3, and we both said the meta stuff got a bit thin towards the end, and we're like, the callbacks to Clerks, like, okay, just leave it. But we both weren't expecting the death of Dante at the end, and you know, I did maybe like tear up a little bit, but I think it is a disappointing. I think I put it in a disappointing camp. I think it's definitely the weaker out of that trilogy. So,
definitely,
I can totally get why you hate it. Like, was it like from the start when you start to watch it? Was it from point one? You're like, oh god.
I don't want to be mean, but like, the film starts, and by the way, okay, so there's like 3 production logos that are all technically Kevin Smith. It's just like, this is View Askew Productions and also Smodcast Productions, and it's just like it's like the film saying like, Kevin Smith presents a Kevin Smith movie in association with Kevin Smith. But then the film starts proper, and you hear one solitary piano note, and you're like, that's not. And then Welcome to the Black Parade kicks in. And I was like, oh wow, we're really doing this. Kind of from the start, I was like, well, these are certainly choices.
When at the end, when he dies, and I think he's put to bed Clerks now. Are you hoping that's it for this?
I hope so. Yeah, like, I mean, at a certain point, you kind of have to, like it's like, how much longer can you keep doing Jane, Silent Bob, you know, like, because we've now seen them old, you know, as well, you know, these, you know, slacker, you know, like youth characters, they've now grown up. It's at a certain point you need to wrap up, and I'd like to see him be. I'd like to see him try again, because even when he swings and he misses, at least, you know, like, you get stuff that's maybe kind of interesting, you know, because, I feel like, you know, Red State is an interesting failure.
It is,
know,
I like Red State.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I think it's okay. I think where he really fails is things like Cop Out, where he tries to make a movie that is not a Kevin Smith movie. Like, that's where it's a massive failure. And I mean, Yoga Hosers is an absolute mess. Like, again, that's just bad choices in that movie.
I remember watching Tusk, and in the end credits, it then plays the clip of the podcast of him being stoned and laughing at the idea of making Tusk, and it's like it's one of the worst tendencies he has, where like he'll just be like, I'm not even a real filmmaker, and I'm not even trying. It's just like, we want you to try, like, you know, like we're rooting for you, like for you to at the end of this movie be like, wasn't it fucking stupid that I made this movie? It's just like, well, I'd kind of like you to. I'm sorry.
There's something to Tusk. There's a Mighty Boosh-esque horror movie in Tusk, right? And it's there, but it just, you're right, is that clip where he's just like, this is all just a piss take, and I was like, well, you've just wasted my time. Thank you. You know, you could have done something with that. Could have been a thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, Jane the Silent Bob reboot, that's terrible. I'm really down on this kind of like whole, look how great I used to be. You know, that I was that guy, remember?
You said, you don't like Clerks 2. But would you think that's a better place to leave the Clerk story, that they bought the Quick Stop and that is it?
I thought that was like a nice bookend. Like, I don't think everything needs to be a trilogy. I think, you know, like there's sometimes just a nice, you know, 2-movie kind of thing like you could do. And again, I think it's a film with its flaws, but I think it was good. I think one problem with Clerks 3 is, I think with Clerks 2, there was that scene in the jail cell at the end where it kind of gets a little emotional and it kind of works. And I think, you know, like it surprised audiences. I think it maybe surprised him. And then from there, like with Clerks 3, he's just like, what if I made the entire film out of that? And so like it's like emotional from like the very start. And yeah, it's because like I feel like, you know, with Clerks 1 to Clerks 2, you kind of had this like nice journey of like, you know, the first one is a very Gen X kind of like cynical kind of, you know, like grungy kind of hangout movie, and then by the time you get to Clerks 2, it's just like, well, we're not young anymore, and like we're older guys, and we kind of do have to care, and we do have to like, and yeah, I know it's not cool to admit it, but you are my best friend, and I love it. Like it's, and it ends, you know, with them kind of growing up a bit, and you know, like Dante's getting married to Rosario Dawson.
Wow.
Like one of the biggest leaps of like God bless her. Like
she does amazing with that though. She makes me believe.
God bless her. Like. Yeah, like people talk about, you know, I remember people would talk shit about just like, oh yeah, like why is it like Seth Rogen's always like getting like with like Seth Rogen's like, you know, quite a handsome man. Brian O'Halloran, I'm bless him, I'm sure he is lovely, but just like but Rosario Dawson. Yeah, it's. But, you know, that film ends with just like, okay, and he's got a new chapter of his life. He is like, you know, like gonna have a kid and everything, and the fact that, like, with Clerks 3, he's just like, okay, I didn't really know how to write that, so I killed her immediately after the second film, like, her and, like, his kid.
Yeah.
It's just, like, that is needlessly brutal.
I think that's because Rosario Dawson probably went, I can give you 2 hours of my time. And she was like, okay, I can do something like that. And I thought that was quite squeezed in quite well. What I like about the third movie is about that period in your life when you think it's not how your life's kind of turned out, or you're stuck in that dead-end job. But that dead-end job is a good place for these characters, I think, at the end of the second one. Yeah, I still haven't decided where I lie on Clerks 3. I think it's bad. No.
Yeah.
It's not good.
Well, did you ever read... the actual draft itself has never gone out, but like there's like a synopsis of like did you ever like the first version of Clerks 3 that he wrote?
No, what was it?
No.
So he initially had written an entirely different script for Clerks 3. Jeff Anderson said no to it. He thought it was too big. Like it was something to do with like the Quick Stop burned down. Well, no, did it burn down? Something happened because it burns down at the start of the second one. Something happens to the Quick Stop. Randall kind of has a nervous breakdown and kind of starts this commune. Like he starts queuing up for a film he's looking forward to that isn't coming out for like another year or so. Kind of starts this weird commune and stuff like that. Dante's had Rosario Dawson is still alive in this. Dante's had his kid and everything like that. Then the third act of the film is like a year has passed. Like this film that they're looking forward to has come out. They're at the premiere of it, and at the premiere of the film, there is a mass shooting, and Dante is killed trying to protect his kid. Wild idea. And then and then Kevin Smith had Jeff Anderson said no to the script. Then Kevin Smith had his heart attack, and he was just like, oh, I've actually got a much better idea for Clerks 3. It's just, is it about your heart attack and then you making Clerks? and it's that. I don't think the original idea for Clerks 3 would have been better. It's certainly a bolder choice. I don't know. But like I think he did like a live read of that script once he knew he wasn't going to make it, and then patched it. You know.
That'd be amazing.
I'm quite glad they didn't make that.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, Clerks 3 by all means is not perfect, but the mass shooting thing, no, I'm glad they didn't.
Good choice, Kevin.
Yeah.
Good choice.
Yeah.
What sequel seemed like a bad idea, but you ended up liking?
Oh, okay. That's a good question.
He's thinking. You can beat franchise films, Bonds, Mission Impossibles, Fast and Furious, horror franchises.
I mean, it feels cliche to say, like, I might just have to go with like Fast 5. It's
the perfect answer.
It's like, who could have foreseen like by the fifth one is when everything clicks together.
Took its time, didn't it?
All of a sudden, and now I'm fully converted, and I know these films have gotten banned now, but I'm still fully on board. Like I go see them now, like, and they are events for me now. Like I remember F9 was like one of the first big films I saw post lockdown, and it that felt like. Because was it F9 that had like the trailer where it's like Vin Diesel in the leather jacket, like, you know, like, we need to go back to the movies.
Yeah.
And he's like, yes, Vin.
Well, yeah, Fast and Furious is like a cult now, it seems. It's gone mad. And yeah, a lot of people do say Fast and Furious 5. But were you a fan at all? Were you didn't like the first 3 then? 4, actually, at that point.
Yeah, so I remember you had the first 3, and they were fine. You know, you got all the pieces there, and then they did that 4th one, where it's just like, okay, we got the team back together, and it's like, okay, but you're like, oh, I appreciate what you're trying there, but for some reason it's just the 5th one. It's all locked in, like, or just it's more fun than the 4th one, and we're just like, you know what, we're having fun with it, like, you know, we're. Yeah, it's like the heist. It's just something about that one where you're like, actually, you know what? I could watch several more of these. And oh god, I remember I was working in the cinema for the 6th one, and it feels like we now know that Jason Statham is in these films. We know this, but being in the cinema, like seeing like at the end of the 6th one, it's like, oh, we're going back to the car crash that killed Han in the 3rd one, but now we're seeing, oh, who's stepping out the car and who's stepping out the car. Holy shit, it's Jason Statham, and he's pulling out the phone and he's saying like, Dominic Toretto, you don't know me. Explosion, but you're about to. Oh my god,
that's great.
It's and like, I mean, the end of the 5th one, you've even got like Eva Mendes coming back from the 2nd one just for a little cameo, just be like, do you believe in ghosts? Like pulling out the photo of Letty. You're just like, oh, I love it. You know, like, I'm just like, I think it's when the series is fully realized, oh, we're an action blockbuster soap opera. And that's the fun of it, you know.
Where do you think it's going wrong at the moment then? Because 9's bad, I would say. 10, what did you think of the last one? Setting up the finale. I guess it is now the 11th.
It won't be a finale. Come on, Vin Diesel's going to make these till he's 84.
Yeah. I think one problem is that Vin Diesel's now got a little bit too much authorship. That to have Justin Lin walk out a week into production, when Justin Lin is the guy that got this back on track, He's the guy. He's the proper set of hands. That like even when it's a different director, you feel like his kind of, him looking over it and like making sure it's all working. And for him to step away, I feel like one of the things that makes like 5 so good is like the action scenes do feel tactile, but a lot of like Fast X, you see a lot of green screen.
Yeah.
There. A lot of stuff that looks unnatural, that I've heard rumors that Vin Diesel has been digitally lost weight during it, like that, they've.
Oh wow, okay.
But listen. By the way, like when you're a man of that age, there is no pressure for you to be ripped. Like we would happily take Dominic Toretto with a little bit of a beer belly.
I would prefer Dominic Toretto with a bit of a beer belly.
Please give us that. So when you're getting like CGI to maybe get a couple of your chins removed, you look weird and uncanny. Like you've gone from like, real life car stunts that are happening to, I don't believe that's a real person stood in front of a real backdrop. Yeah. Again, there's a lot I really liked about Fast X. I know Jason Momoa was really divisive. I think he's a lot of fun.
Great.
I think
he's the best thing about that movie.
He's like, you've not had a sort of theatrical, flamboyant villain like that before, and that's a fun energy to bring into this very like sort of straight-faced franchise. I think a big problem is, and it was an asset a while back, like with the fun soap opera element. Like we love to see characters come back, but like now it's like death doesn't matter. Like when they brought back like Gal Gadot at the end of it, it's just like, right, so even Letty's not dead. Like
it's mad.
Yeah, so the fact that Fast X leaves us on this cliffhanger of like, oh no, all the characters have been killed. Well, we know they haven't.
Yeah.
We know, so this cliffhanger means nothing.
Yeah, absolutely.
No.
I mean, the brilliant thing about 5 is essentially you've gone from a group of mates who steal DVD players to like a somehow international heist, stealing a drug dealer's safe and driving it down the road, like working with the FBI. Like how did they get here?
I can make that jump. It's when they start going the jump from 5 to maybe 8 when they are top secret spies is too far for me. That's when it like Vin Diesel has gone from, Dominic Toretto has gone from literally like the baddie in Point Break, but with cars, to James Bond. It's such mad. A leap. I mean, 5 does have the intro of The Rock, which really it's Nitro, wasn't it? It's his a special little sauce in that film, and you're like, oh, The Rock's so good. And then he's kind of disappeared from the other ones. And then they've teased that he's going to make another film, or he's going to be in the 11th for whatever he's going to do. And as far as I'm aware, at the moment, they haven't started making this last film, have they?
Yeah, like it's not in production. I'm worried.
It's mad.
You should have you had 10. You had 10. Just 10 should have been the one to wrap it up.
Should have been enough. Yeah.
No, but this one goes up to 11.
Yeah. Or film them back to back. You had all the characters there, or the actors. You might as well do it all at once. And now we're going to get that time jump from the end of that 10 to what's going to happen in 11 with Dominic Toretto driving down the dam where it cut. And you're like, he's going to age about 4 years. And, sometimes aging's not kind when you're getting older. So it's going to be a bit mad. What is your dream sequel?
Okay. So my dream sequel is... And I think the time for it has passed. I think the ideal time to have made it would have been either 1995 or 2005.
Okay.
But basically, the John Hughes high school movies, like The Breakfast Club, Weird Science, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, 16 Candles, Pretty in Pink, they all take place in the fictional town of Shermer, Illinois. Yeah. And they always teased, like, oh, we might make a sequel to The Breakfast Club. We might make a sequel to Ferris Bueller's Day Off. But you never... What if we just did Shermer High Reunion? Ooh. And we do a sequel to all of them in the one film, and we kind of lean into that shared universe. Molly Ringwald plays, like, 4 characters, and we just get little bits and pieces. It's an ensemble piece where we just get to find out what happened to every single one of them, and so like, if it was 1995, it would be like 10 years on, or if it's 2005, it's like 20 years on. Now everyone's a little long in the tooth, and I don't know if we want to see them that old. But just to, to have a film where, like the Breakfast Club are there, like, like maybe they get locked in a room accidentally and like they like maybe, yeah, like what happened to like the couple from 16 Candles, like
that's the problem one, isn't it? Has the 16 Candles, if we're looking at John Hughes films?
That is the most problematic one. Yeah. So yeah, you would have to do a lot of I figure if, like, life hasn't been kind to everybody, but it would have to be Long Duck Dong is thriving. All right, he is doing great, or is not in this film at all. Whatever's the best tactic. Yeah. I don't know. But yeah, like is Kelly LeBrock from Weird Science still kicking about? Has she aged?
Probably not.
Is she still teaching gym? And so you can get these little snippets of like what's happened to all these characters, and it's kind of got like that, like that. They've grown up, and they maybe some of them are reconnecting, and I think that would have been fun. Obviously the time for it's passed, but it's a nice little what if.
Which characters would you like to see interact with each other, like Ferris and the Breakfast Club, or who would work where?
Oh, like sort of like cross connect.
Yeah, just a little bit.
I would like to see one scene where it's just you've got all the Molly Ringwalds together, like into the Mollyverse. I think, yeah, like if you could have like Ferris Bueller, up against like Judd Nelson from Breakfast Club.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah. I think that would be great. Yeah.
What about is Pretty Pink in this universe as well?
Pretty in Pink is like I know John Hughes didn't direct that one, but he wrote it, he produced it, and it's in Shermer High.
Well, you got to have Ducky fall in love with another version of Molly Ringwald, right?
Right, that's genius. All right, so yeah, like you've got like several. Oh my god, yeah. So obviously, like it never worked out between Molly Ringwald and Judd Nelson in Breakfast Club. Maybe they had a fling, but it did not work out, And so yeah, like maybe Ducky. Oh god, yeah, that could be it. Like so Ducky and I forget Molly Ringwald's character.
Who knows? Let's just call her Molly.
Yeah.
Molly one.
Just like you're how are you? Oh, you're doing well. Like and Ducky's like, oh sorry, have you met my wife? It's Molly Ringwald. Yeah, it writes itself.
That'd be amazing. When did John Hughes die? I'm not quite sure.
I think it was about 2008, 2009.
Okay, so he definitely would have had time to write this. Mm-hmm. Is that who would you let John Hughes or no one in your head?
Actually, I mean, it could have been a nice sort of tribute to him, because also, like, I mean, it's he kind of fell off a bit, like it's. I mean, he had a great run after the teen movies, he writing like Home Alone and Uncle Buck and stuff like that, but then Flubber, Made in Manhattan, and it's
Beethoven. All those.
Hey! Let's not. Beethoven and 1 and 2 are great. If we're going to go, down that one.
There was do you remember the Topher Grace movie, Take Me Home Tonight?
No.
Right. It's a film that Topher Grace wrote and I think directed, and he stars in. And it's the film on that set. That's where Chris Pratt met Anna Faris. But it's a sort of teen movie that takes place in the 1980s, but he set it in Shermer, Illinois, as his kind of tribute to it as well. Like he's like, fuck it, I'm letting myself into this universe.
It's the poster 4 ways, and it's all like different colours kind of thing. Yeah,
I believe it is.
And he's wearing glasses, and he's like, I might have seen that.
We talked about Kevin Smith earlier, and in Dogma, Jay and Silent Bob are trying to get to Shermer, Illinois. Like,
wait 2 seconds. Hang on. Where is it? Oh God, where are you?
I love this. Chris has gone over to his bookshelf.
Now, I don't know if any of you have read this. It's a comic series that he made in between the release of Chasing Amy and Dogma, and it's what they were getting up to in between, that they briefly talk about in Dogma, of them trying to find Shermer, Illinois.
Oh, wow.
Love it.
Would you let Kevin Smith write it now?
You know what? Maybe that's what Kevin Smith should be doing.
Oh, he could do that really well, I think. Because he could bring back all the characters he loves, but they're not his characters. You know, they're not the same old ones. And then James,
so it doesn't feel like he's sucking his own dick.
Up, they finally found the place.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which one's your favourite out of that era? Like, was that a big thing growing up, those films?
Yeah. I think maybe because, like, one, like, Jane Silent Bob, like, they talk about those movies in Dogma, and then and you know, you go through that thing of, like, you then want to find out the stuff that influenced the stuff that you like. So I was watching a lot of, like, the 2000s teen movies, and you're like, okay, well, like, this is referencing this.
Yeah.
I think my favorite of those is Ferris Bueller's Day Off. I like that film a lot.
It's the best one.
And yeah, and I know a lot of people, like, they shit on it, and they're like, oh, but, like, Ferris is a dick, and they say that, like, that's not a little bit of the point. Like, the whole thing with Ferris Bueller's Day Off is, he is the popular kid that everything has come easy to him, and he's kind of selfish, but, like, and the film never flat out says this, but, like, you know, it's like his friend is the unpopular kid, and I think he's worried that his friend is depressed, and, like, his friend is gonna kill himself, and, like, in his stupid, selfish way, this is him trying to help his friend out of that.
Yeah.
And the miraculous thing is, it actually works. And, like, I like that reading of the film. And, like, so for, you know, when folk are just like, I don't know, like, you know, Ferris is just, like, an arrogant, you know, like, smarmy. Yes, he absolutely is. And it's like this, it's the, you know, preppy, popular kid actually having to think about somebody else for the first time in his life and try to do good, you know. And the fact that it kind of does all that without ever having to flat out say it, I think that's the story of Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Wow.
I think
that's a nice way of thinking about it. Have you seen they're going to do a semi-sequel to Ferris Bueller, and they're going to see what happens when the two people take the car?
Oh yeah, I did see that, and I think that's a terrible idea. I'm so sorry. Like, it's just that kind of, like, oh yeah, it's sort of mentioning that thing that you like, and it's just like, no, but they just enjoy the car. Like,
they just take it for a long drive and add all those miles to it.
Yeah.
Are you a little bit shocked they never got round, while John Hughes was alive, making no sequels to any of these films? Or was just the sequels not a thing in the 1980s or 1990s?
I'm a little shocked. I mean, like, because I remember there was, like, there was talk of, like, doing Breakfast Club 2. I think John Hughes had a concept for it. It was them somehow, like, in an airport. And and I feel like all the pieces are there, where, like, doing, like, a sort of 10 years later thing that feels more a piece of, like, films like The Big Chill, or, like, kind of Gen X-y kind of stuff, where it's like, because I feel like the movie St. Elmo's Fire, which is not a John Hughes film, it was like Joel Schumacher, but it's like a lot of the Brat Pack there. It was trying to do that kind of, all right, what happens to these sorts of characters once they're out of college and, like, they've grown up? But it was like the year after The Breakfast Club, so it's just like, it was so weird, you know. Yeah.
What I really want to see is Judd Nelson and Richard Vernon, like the teacher, where, because Vernon's like, you're going to be nothing. I can't wait to see you in 10 years. You're going to be nothing. And I just want Judd Nelson's back to be like, by the way, I'm really fucking successful. So
yeah,
screw you. Those were Chris Thorburn's Unequal Sequels. I mean, come on. Could that have been any better?
It was a good one, wasn't it?
Chris is brilliant. I really enjoyed that chat. He's so good.
I love it when people bring knowledge, facts, and unexpected choices to the podcast.
Yeah.
And his best, which is Exorcist Free Legion, I was not expecting
No.
anything of.
Me neither.
It's great. It's
Surprisingly
really
good.
Good, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it gets a bit mad at the end when the other priest comes in from nowhere, and it gets like the makers actually remembered that there has to be an exorcist or something.
That's true.
The whole police detective hunt for a murderer who's possessed. I mean, it's mad.
Yeah.
And that it's a legacy sequel. Even before legacy sequels came out, it was. I watched it and I couldn't believe how much I was enjoying it, how good it was. I had to go and tell my wife. I was like, it's really good. I was fully expecting it to be shit. And I would put that in the camp as same as Psycho 2 and even Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 a little bit.
Like surprising. It's better than Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, yeah. But Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 is such a tonal shift from the first one to almost makes it a comedy. That's mad. This is, I'd say this is better than that. But it's definitely in that very surprising, I was convinced this was going to be shit. And it's really not. Yeah,
there's a lot of good stuff in that sequel. And I'm really glad he brought it to the table. And thanks, Chris, for doing that. Because it's tick. I've seen that film now. I still haven't seen the second one.
No, me neither.
Heretic. But I am really trying to get Mark Commode on this podcast at some point.
And we know he's going to pick it as his worst, right?
I think it's going to be his worst. So at some point, that's going to happen. Because if you put it out there, manifest and all that bullshit.
Yeah.
Anyway, worst was Clerks 3.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that now? It's just me and you in the room.
I mean, he's right. Everything Chris said, I kind of agree with. But I also kind of enjoyed it. And it made me cry at the end.
Yeah, it did me as well.
But then we did watch it in the Prince Charles Cinema. It was a big deal. There were loads of other Kevin Smith fans. Yeah, it was that kind of atmosphere. So it was obviously a different experience for us. And I haven't watched it since. And maybe I should have done. But yeah, he's not wrong. That's the thing. I wish he was, but he's not.
We all like Kevin Smith. Again, manifest. He'll be great on the podcast.
Yeah.
Even though recently I read an interview and he said he won't do any more. He won't be negative about anything. So, I'm not quite sure how he'd go about doing a worse sequel.
He could pick one of his own movies for worst sequels, I think.
Oh, we could tell him that. I'd be like, yeah, someone's picked Clerks 3, guys. That'd be amazing as well to get him on this podcast. But yes, it's probably the worst. And I like most people that come on the podcast and say something's the worst that I think I'm not going to agree with. I ended up thinking, oh, he is right. He is.
And this is the point of the podcast, is that everyone's got a point, right? Like,
yeah.
Everyone's
Absolutely.
opinion counts, and they are opinions, they're not facts. But, we listen to everyone's opinion.
And like we said, it's not going to stop me watching any more Kevin Smith films. I'm looking forward to his new film, but set in a cinema or something. It's going to be good. Hopefully he taps back into that really good Kevin Smith dialogue that he writes.
Yeah, I hope so.
I really liked the sound of Chris's Dream sequel, which is pretty much a sequel to all John Hughes's film.
Yeah, we put it as The Breakfast Club, but really it's kind of all those kind of Ohio John
Sherman
Hughes
Oaks
movies. Yeah, Sherman, Ohio movies, which has a, as we talked about, has a Kevin Smith link.
Yes.
Because, yeah.
I think having a scene with loads of Molly Ringwald would be so fun.
I love that. Like loads of different Molly Ringwalds. That would be great.
It's an idea. It writes itself, all of this. And it's a shame it won't happen now. And because there was a documentary someone made, Andrew McCarthy, who's one of the Brat Packs, and he made it about that era, and a lot of the Brat Packers didn't come back for it. And it was Anthony Hall that was like, I don't really look back anymore, I look forward. So I doubt he'll come back for a...
And I also think, turns out John Hughes was a very nice guy.
Yep.
So, yeah.
And he's not around to write it, so you can't
that's true, yeah.
But when he was alive, I would have liked to seen it. I
like Chris's idea for it. Maybe it could be animated and nobody has to see each other.
Yeah, but then you wouldn't have that Molly universe, would you?
But you could.
With just Ducky turning up with another version of...
Yeah, you could still do that, but just animated.
That's great. Anyway, great picks. Chris is a brilliant comedian. He's
100%.
very big old geek. Hopefully he doesn't mind me calling him that. He loves films very much. His new show, which he's doing at the run at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival this year in 2024, is called Cineman. It's jokes about films.
Yes.
It's great. He's going to be on at the Stand between July the 31st and August 25th.
Right up our street. Right up our street. Not the 12th. Not the 12th. Don't go on the 12th. He won't be there.
At 2:45. And if you want to hear more of that conversation about us talking to him about the Edinburgh Fringe, it's on the Another Slice extra sequel sessions chat. We talk about his love for cinema a bit more and stuff. So go check that out. Go check out his show. Go check him out on YouTube or Instagram and X. It's all very funny stuff. Have I just done your job?
Yeah, pretty much, mate. Pretty much. But thank you. I like
You're
that.
welcome. You're welcome.
Yeah. I don't think there's anything for me to say about Chris now. You've done it all.
Go check out his podcast. Good for them. It's a film
definitely
podcast
check out the podcast. It's brilliant. It's a great movie podcast.
Anyone who loves films as much as Chris does, then you know it's going to be a good podcast.
And anyone who likes comedy and films, which is both of us, then Cineman is the show for you.
Normally our favourite kind of guest, to be
Yeah.
honest.
Comedians who love films. I mean, that's right up our wheelhouse.
There is a lot of them as well.
Absolutely.
Because
100%.
they have to do something in the daytime when they're not performing, apparently, and they get kicked out of hotels and they have to go somewhere.
Yeah. And you know what? If you want to hear a load of comedians talking about movies, then just go back and listen to our previous episodes, because you'll find loads. There's Sean Walsh, there's Nick Helm, there's tons of comedians talking about their love of movies. So yeah, go back and have a listen. While you're there, hit the auto download button, hit the subscribe button. We'll drop into your pod player of choice every single week. Subscribing really helps others find the podcast, so if you could do that, that would be lovely. But also, if you wouldn't mind getting on the old social medias and telling people about us, we are at Unequal Sequel on like all of them. Like just type Unequal Sequel into the search bar, you'll find us. You can also use social media to send us messages. Tell us what you thought of Chris's choices. But if you don't do social media, you can get in touch with us, unequalsequel@hotmail.com. If you have been listening for a while and you think, do you know what? I need a little more of this. I need some more sequel goodness in my life. Then you can get that. You just go to anotherslice.com/unequal sequel, and for just £2.99 a month. Yes, that is £2.99 a month. That's less than half a coffee. Like, you can get Box Set Mentality, you can get Disenfranchised, and you get all of our sequel sessions, which means you get an extra chunk of chat with every single person that we talk to on our main interview episodes. Loads of stuff. $2.99 a month. It's amazing. Yeah, go check it out.
Go check it out. Go check all the extra stuff. We've got some good stuff coming on all our channels, really. That was episode 8 of season 6. Next week, we're really in to the tail end of this season now. We really are. And we've got some fantastic episodes coming along, so get ready for that. Check out the sequel sessions, like Rich said. It's great.
Basically time for us to start recording season 7 now, right?
We're going to try and really get 2 seasons out this year. That is our plan. I think we're feeling good about it and positive about it at the moment, so it's going to happen.
Yes. Let's get them all done in the school summer holidays when my work is a bit quieter.
Oh, that'd be brilliant. Anyway, thank you for listening. You guys are all brilliant. You're our favourite people if you listen. Go tell your friends if you want to spread the word, because that would really help. I've got nothing else to say, so it's a goodbye from me. Bye-bye. And then it's a goodbye from him.
Bye!
See you on the next week. Sequel to this week. Have a good week. Bye-bye.
It's all the weeks, mate.
I think I got that wrong, but...
Hey, just style it out. It's all good.
It's our podcast. Good. I can do what I want, basically, at this point.
It's fine. It's fine.
On to the next one. Okay, here we go. I've been told to make a trailer, and they said to make it impactful and memorable. So here we go. My name is Dave Curtis, and I will guarantee you probably haven't heard of me, but I host a podcast called Unequal Sequel, and I love movies. Well, this is a new podcast. If you do something, it's better to do something impossible, because it feels good. Well, I've set myself a mission impossible. You'll see why that's clever in a minute. You may not know it, but Tom Cruise sends loads of people a cake at Christmas. I have set myself a quest to get Tom Cruise to send me that cake. How, you're asking? How, Dave? How is that going to happen? Well, you have to listen to the podcast and find out. That's literally what the podcast is about. It's about Tom Cruise, his career, and me getting the cake from Tom Cruise. Sounds fun, doesn't it? How about you listen along? It's called The Great Tom Cruise Cake Quest. And it will be available wherever you get your podcasts. I don't know about you, but I think I nailed that.